A poignant depiction of New Year's Eve in a bustling 19th-century European town, introducing the heart-wrenching journey of the little match girl as she clutches her matches amidst the warmth of a festive world that leaves her behind. It was the bitterly cold evening of New Year's Eve. Snowflakes danced in the biting wind, blanketing the cobblestones of the bustling town square. A cheerful hum of voices and laughter echoed through the streets as families hurried to and fro, their arms laden with parcels and gifts. Behind every windowpane, warm fires flickered, casting golden glows into the snowy night. Everywhere, there was an air of celebration and comfort. Yet amidst all this joy, a small figure moved unnoticed through the streets. It was a little girl, frail and shivering, clutching a bundle of matches. Her thin dress fluttered in the wind, offering no protection from the cold. Her feet were bare, blue and swollen from the frost, for she had lost her slippers, her late mother's oversized ones, while crossing the street earlier that day. A passing carriage had startled her, and as she ran to avoid it, one slipper was lost in the snow while the other was snatched up by a mischievous boy, who laughed as he declared it a perfect cradle for his cat. Now, the little girl wandered the streets, unnoticed by the joyous crowds. "Matches, fine matches, please buy some matches," she called out in a voice so faint it was swallowed by the wind. Her hands trembled as she held up the bundles, her fingers reddened and raw from the cold. A desperate night. As darkness fell, the temperature seemed to drop even further. The girl's teeth chattered as she trudged through the snow. She had not sold a single match all day, and her tiny stomach ached with hunger. The smell of roasted meats and spiced pastries wafted from the homes she passed, making her pain all the more acute. The thought of returning home filled her with dread. Her father, a cruel and impatient man, would surely beat her for failing to earn any money. Her small hands tightened around the matches as she walked on, her heart heavy with fear and despair. Finally, the girl found a small, sheltered corner between two buildings. The walls offered a scant reprieve from the howling wind, but the cold still seeped through her dress and into her bones. Curling her legs beneath her, she huddled in the corner, clutching the matches tightly to her chest. A moment of warmth, the biting chill became unbearable, and her tiny fingers could barely move. In desperation, she struck one of the matches against the wall. The little match girl lights her first match, envisioning a warm iron stove that brings fleeting comfort to her frozen hands. A spark flared, and the match caught fire. The flame was small but bright, and its warmth spread through her frozen hands. As she gazed at the flickering light, it began to grow in her imagination. The dull wall in front of her seemed to melt away, replaced by the vision of a grand iron stove. Its fire glowed warmly, radiating heat that wrapped around her like a loving embrace. She stretched out her hands toward the stove, feeling the imaginary warmth on her fingertips. But as the match burned out, the vision vanished, leaving her in the cold darkness once more. Her hands fell to her lap, now colder than ever. Visions of comfort. Determined to recapture the fleeting warmth, she struck another match. This time, the flame danced even brighter, illuminating the walls around her. In its glow, the space before her transformed into a grand room with a large table at its center. The table was laden with food, crisp, golden roasted goose, steaming vegetables, and a fragrant pie. The delicious aroma filled her senses, and her mouth watered. She imagined herself taking a slice of the goose, savoring its rich flavor. Just as she reached out, the match extinguished, and the sumptuous feast disappeared. She was left once again in the cold, her empty stomach aching more than ever. The magic of light. Shivering, the girl lit another match, her fingers trembling as she struck it against the wall. This time, a magnificent Christmas tree appeared before her, more splendid than any she had ever seen. The tree towered high, its branches covered in shimmering ornaments and tiny candles that glowed like stars. At its top was a brilliant star, casting a golden light over the room. The little girl reached out to touch one of the ornaments, a glittering glass angel, but just as her fingers brushed against it, the match burned out. The tree and its lights faded into the dark, leaving her in the silence of the frozen night. Lighting her second match, the little girl imagines a sumptuous feast, her hunger momentarily eased by the magical vision. A vision of love. With tears in her eyes, she struck another match. This time, the flame brought forth the most beautiful vision of all, her grandmother. The kind old woman, who had passed away years ago, appeared before her, radiant and smiling. The little girl cried out in joy, "Grandmother! Oh, take me with you. Don't leave me here." Her grandmother extended her arms, and the little girl felt herself enveloped in their warmth. Desperate to keep the vision alive, she struck match after match, until they all blazed together in a brilliant light. The cold, the hunger, and the sorrow melted away as she felt herself lifted from the harsh streets into her grandmother's loving embrace. The morning after, by the first light of dawn, the snow had stopped falling, and the town awoke to a new year. In the corner where the little girl had sought shelter, her lifeless body lay curled up in the snow. Her cheeks were rosy, and her lips wore a faint smile. The spent matches lay scattered around her, their ends blackened. The townsfolk gathered, shaking their heads at the sight. They murmured words of pity, lamenting the poor child's fate. Yet none could have imagined the beauty she had seen in her final moments, the warmth of the stove, the feast of the table, the glow of the Christmas tree, and the love of her grandmother. A glowing Christmas tree with shimmering ornaments fills the little girl with awe as she lights her third match. A legacy of compassion. Though her life had been filled with suffering, the little match girl's story endures as a poignant reminder of the fragility of life and the importance of kindness. Her spirit, freed from the harshness of the world, now rests in a place of eternal warmth and happiness, cradled in the arms of love. The little girl's final match reveals her beloved grandmother, whose warm embrace offers her solace in the cold night.